On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, Russian and Chinese ships are sailing north. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano, and welcome to today's episode. So, a story by Molt Hubbard over at G Captain is discussing the fact that even in the face of widening Western sanctions, Russia managed to increase its Arctic transit cargo by almost 50% over 2023. Its main Arctic shipping lane, the Northern Sea Route, the NSR, recorded 97 transits carrying close to 3 million tons of cargo, both figures surpassing previous highs. The total cargo volume along this route, including transits and traffic originating in Russia, stands around 40 million tons in 2024. We're going to take a look at this latest report out by Nord University of Norway, break down the data, and discuss why this is such an important and potentially viable route for both Russia and China. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be alerted about new videos as they come out. Here's the story over at G Captain. I will, of course, have the link for it so you can go over there and read it. And I will also have the link to the actual report, which has some great data. They also do this report and update it fairly regularly. So if you want to follow along, see what's going on, you can go ahead and bookmark this. Now, back in October, Malt had written this piece: Arctic shipping boom continues as China and Russia push cargo volume to new heights. So we'd seen this developing over the course of the year. This is the report from Nord University out of their Center for High North Logistics, as a great sounding name for it. Main results of the Northern Sea Route transit navigation in 2024. Nord University collected this data via AIS, the automated information system, and Clarkson Fleet database, along with other sources. By mid-November, the representative of Nordstrom had reported a figure of 3.8 million tons of transit cargo. That equates to 97 voyages, 56 with cargo, 41 in ballast. This shows you the movement of ships over the past 15 years and how this is at the highest point it has been, both in terms of voyages, 97, and in terms of cargo, 3.1 million. In 2024, there were three main directions of transit voyages: voyages from Russia to China, voyages from China to Russia, and then voyages between Western and Eastern Russian ports. As in 2023, there were no international transit voyages. Distribution of voyages was as follows: between Russian ports, 36 voyages from west to east and from east to west. From Russia to China, 34 voyages, and from China to Russia, 27 voyages. Now, in terms of the amount of cargo transported, the direction from Russia to China was overwhelmingly taking up 95% of the cargo, with 2.9 million tons. In the opposite direction, only about 4% was moved, about 0.12 million. And then between Russian ports, minuscule 0.025 million. That's basically less than 1%. The main type of cargo that's moved there is crude oil and bulk cargoes. We're talking about coal, fertilizer, iron ore, concentrate, and containerized cargo. There are also single voyages for the transportation of liquefied natural gas and petroleum products, along several voyages of just general cargoes and seafood. In addition to cargo movements, we observe repositioning of vessels from one area to another, return voyages in ballast after discharging, and ballast voyages to loading terminals. Export of crude oil from Russia to China has become the main cargo of transit across the Northern Sea Route, with voyages coming out of the Baltic Sea, from Murmansk on the Kola Peninsula, and from the North Slope. A total of 18 voyages with crude oil amounting to 1.89 million tons was sent. 14 tankers with a total cargo volume of 1.5 million tons departed from Murmansk. 3 voyages from Primorsk, delivering 320,000 tons of crude oil to China. There was also one voyage directly from the Fritzalamina, I know I got that wrong, I apologize, oil platform. Here's a breakdown on those crude oil shipments that's provided in the report. Interesting to note that all these vessels are ice strengthened. You're going to see very few ships that are coming through here. They all range from Ice 2 up to Arc 6, and those are measurements of hull strength and how vessels are hardened against packed ice. Crude oil was not transported by tankers without ice class, and I think that's really important. They don't want to have a puncture and have a massive oil spill in and around the area. The second largest type of cargo moved along the Northern Sea Route is bulk cargo. Approximately 877,000 tons was transported. The largest amount out of Murmansk was iron ore concentrate, with 3 voyages totaling 475,000 tons by non-ice class strength vessels. That's an important distinction here, that they're using non-ice vessels for this. From Ust-Luga, 3 cargoes of coal were sent, with one more coal shipment sent out of Murmansk. That's a total volume of coal of 316,000 tons. From St. Petersburg came 86,000 tons of fertilizer. This shows you the list of voyages of ships with bulk cargo on board. You'll notice that 4 of these vessels were not ice strengthened, 3 of them coming from Murmansk and 1 from St. Petersburg. In addition to oil and bulk cargo, we're seeing containers being moved. Container transport was mainly carried out between Chinese ports and the Russian ports of Archangelis and St. Petersburg. Cargoes from China included sets of auto parts, construction equipment and materials, passenger cars, clothing, footwear, and chemical products. From Archangelis to China, containers with lumber, pulp, polyethylene, and cardboard were shipped. This chart covers the period from August 1st to October 31st of 2024 and deals with ice conditions that were some of the key factors regarding safe navigation along the North Sea route. You can see in August, there was a period of heavy ice conditions that persisted in the East Siberian Sea early in that month. The second, from roughly the mid-August to early September, was a period of medium ice conditions prevalent in the Chukotkin Sea. And then the third, throughout the beginning of September, was really light ice conditions. And then the fourth, from September to October, was open water was maintained along the entire northern sea route. And this allowed light ice conditions throughout the region. So Russia's fleet of icebreakers, which is 7 vessels, remained very active during this period of time. And matter of fact, we saw 3 different nuclear icebreakers, the Sibir, the Ural, and the Vagach, take turns escorting convoys through this region. And earlier this week, Russia's newest icebreaker, the Yakutia, began sea trials, bringing the country's fleet up to a record of 8 vessels. They want 8 vessels so that they can ensure year-round navigation along this route. Russia is aiming to expand its nuclear fleet to at least 10 vessels by 2030. Now, the Northern Sea Route is not a large amount of cargo, even though those numbers may look impressive to you. It really isn't a huge amount of vessels and cargo, but it represents an increase. And while the major shipping firms have announced they will not use the Northern Sea Route, that can change tomorrow if it becomes more permissible for them to do it. If situations change, we have the Houthi in the Red Sea, if we have an issue in the South China Sea, if we lose the Straits of Malacca, more importantly, if there is no other alternative, ships will take that route. And what Russia has been trying to do is make the Northern Sea Route more affordable and more likable to shipping firms. In particularly right now, this is a route that avoids a lot of the major choke points. When you look at this map, I mean, the choke points they involve here is the Straits of Tsushima between Korea and Japan, out north and south of Hokkaido Island. One of them is controlled partially by the Russians from Sakhalin Island, and then along the Kuril Islands, those are owned by the Russians, and then up along the Russian coast off of Nome and the Alaskan coast here into the Bering Sea, and then entirely along the northern Russia coast. And obviously there's some key choke points here that you have to get around because of ice, and then out north of Norway and coming in. And obviously one of the other major choke points that's in the news right now is the Baltic Sea coming in. We still have that vessel Yiping 3 sitting there in the Kattegat being charged, or not charged, but alleged to have cut cables, and the vessel is sitting in international water in the Kattegat between Denmark and Sweden while investigations are taking place. The ship hasn't moved for fear of entering the territorial waters of either Denmark or Sweden and being apprehended. This route is a really enticing one, but even this route still has some major choke points that you have to deal with. Now, the Russians can avoid Straits of Tsushima and the Sea of Japan by just going outside and around Japan a little bit longer, but avoids that main choke point. Obviously, the United States with the Aleutian Islands and the Bering Sea has some areas here that it can put as a choke point. And then, of course, coming into the Baltic. All this means is we're seeing more dynamics in the flow of cargo around the world. The Northern Sea Route is becoming much more productive. I know we're going to hear about issues about global warming and the fact that the polar ice caps are melting and it's getting more navigable up there, but still, you'll have closures of this area. There's still a polar ice cap. It moves. It will shut down this route periodically. Matter of fact, last year we saw some very heavy ice in the area that shut down transportation through the area. The icebreakers can get you through a lot of ice, but they can't get you through everything. This is a route that's not 100% all year long. There are issues with pollutions coming from stack gases into the area. IMO, the International Maritime Organization, has strict rules concerning emissions in the Arctic, so ships just can't jump up there. There are also ice restrictions for ice strengthened hulls, where if you sail in that area, you may be jeopardizing your insurance, and commercial firms will not risk ships into areas where there's no insurance on them. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit that super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly, yearly subscriber. Be sure to check us out on Spotify, as our videos are being uploaded to podcast a few days after broadcast on YouTube. Till next episode, Sal, signing off.